How's it, Sky? I thought let me just do a video for you so you can understand a little bit more about how turbos actually work. Someone's clearly spoken nonsense into your head, and for those that are interested in this specific subject about turbo blankets and how they work and how they actually affect a turbocharger, here's some information for you. Turbo blanket fits over this housing, and this housing alone, just this housing. It does not affect the rest of the turbo at all. It fits over this housing. This is the exhaust housing, turbine housing, hot housing. Those are the names. Your exhaust manifold connects onto this flange here. Your downpipe connects over here. The hotter you get the turbine housing, the more energy is transferred into the turbine blade. Fact. You can go and research it. Now, when the housing fits onto the turbo, like so, just this housing is covered with a turbo blanket, shielding the rest of the turbocharger, including the bearing housing. Now, what is the bearing housing? That is where your oil inlet goes into the turbocharger. It then filters through the bearings and it comes out of the turbocharger over here. The blanket shields the oil from the hot turbine housing, and so does the heat shield. Every single turbocharger on the face of the planet has a heat shield or a type of shield design on the bearing housing to prevent heat soak from the turbine stage, which runs inside of the turbine housing, from transferring into the bearing housing. The blanket will shield and protect the oil in the bearing housing because it fits over this housing here. If you lie it on its side, it fits over this area here, protecting the rest of the turbocharger from the heat. It is impossible for a blanket to affect or create a problem in terms of oil temperatures. It is impossible for a turbo blanket to cause a thermal increase into the oil system. It protects the oil system from the heat of the turbine housing. The heat inside the turbine housing, which operates inside the volute over here, is protected by the heat shield. And that is what prevents the heat inside of the turbine stage from transferring into the bearing housing where the oil runs through. So whoever's told you that nonsense story has got no idea what he's talking about, and he probably did something wrong on the dyno which caused damage to your car and blamed it on a blanket. He's got absolutely no idea what he's talking about. With regards to the comment made by the fool who said that there is no oil in a turbo, of course there's oil in a turbo, but there is no oil in the turbine housing. Read my comment. It said no oil in the turbine housing. It exists inside of the bearing housing. Inlet, outlet. The oil does not flow through the turbine housing. Read the comment before you post dumb questions and stupid answers. Sky, the fact of the matter is a turbo blanket is there to assist in keeping temperatures inside of the turbine housing so that you can get the best boost response. At the same time, it protects anything around the turbocharger, the hottest part of the turbo being the turbine housing, including the bearing housing, from overheating, thereby making your turbo actually more reliable.